music, rhythm, noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of jest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled rise. Steampunk Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hey there. So I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK, and we have a panel of guests here. First of all, I know it's been a while since I've had a broadcast. I had to take a mental break because, well, the world. And then Awkward asked me if I was having a show this Friday, and I thought, why not? Maybe it's time to come back. So thanks for that, Awkward. He's been a real friend to me this last year, really. So we're gonna start. We're gonna go around, and I'll mention people because I don't know if everybody's screen is in the same order as mine, and just give everybody like 60 seconds to answer. Like to introduce themselves, tell everybody who they are, and mention for an icebreaker a TV show from the Obama era when things were still relatively sane that they enjoyed. So we'll start with Pam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pam Keith. I am the CEO of the Center for Employment Justice. We are a DC-based law firm that represents employees in civil rights disputes and employment. We represent women, minorities, and whistleblowers. And my favorite TV show would have been Scandal.
Good show. The one dude, the Secret Service love agent guy, or the Secret Service agent love or whatever, he like pops up in all these different shows, and I'm like, oh, like I was watching True Blood, and he was in that. I was like, oh, I didn't know this guy was in that. Anyway. All right, so Awkward.
Hey, I am a variety of things, but since Pam just went right before me, I'll say that among them, I'm someone with numerous invisible disabilities that has drastically affected my ability to function in the workspace. So Pam is someone I've been following for a very long time. I also asked Pam to come on because she's run for office. And I'm going to let everyone else introduce themselves. You're all equally amazing, and I'm so glad that you all agreed to join me. You could just look me up if you're more interested in what I do, I guess. Thanks.
TV show.
Oh, yeah. So you sprung that question on us. So, based on what I thought of was Breaking Bad, which makes sense for me because of two things I would say. As someone who's really
you got
focused,
Walter White's haircut.
3 reasons. Walter White's haircut being the most important. My focus on justice and the drug war and everything like that. Also specifically how race and class intersect with that, and seeing as we are here today, and I've been talking about how we might be able to achieve a general strike for years. That show demonstrates the lengths people will go due to poverty just to protect themselves, to feed their families, to get health care, et cetera, when they can't afford it. Even being a teacher, which, they should make millions if you ask me.
We need a talking pillow for this kind of show. Remember the talking pillow from Breaking Bad? All right. So, thus Seth the Cotlar.
Yeah, hi. So I'm a history professor at Willamette University out in Salem, Oregon. And And I'm writing a book about a right-wing wacko who became the chair of the Oregon Republican Party in 1978, who had been a fascist in the 1930s and was a white.
What was that name again?
His name was Walter Huss. He's been totally memory hold. No one wants to remember him. Either. Especially the Republicans in Oregon don't want to remember him. Not a great sign, not a great look having a fascist become the chair of your party. Anyway, so I'm, that's the hat I wear. I'm a nerdy historian.
You are the second nerdy history professor named Seth that I know.
Wow, I didn't realize it was a type, but there you go. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And you're the second one that's been on the show. My other one, my friend, has been on the show several times. So.
Nice. I started as an early American historian. So like this.
That's what he teaches is American history. So,
wow, what's his name?
It's almost like you're the same, except different last names.
Right. What's the last name of this other Seth?
Oh, Whites. Seth Whites.
Oh, I don't.
I'll send you his Twitter account. He's a good guy. Smart guy.
Cool.
Seth Cotlar.
Yeah.
You would. Oh, two things. First, for you, you would consider yourself someone who focuses on extremism, right-wing extremism today, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or would you put, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's now my beat is that the long history of the far right, basically.
Yeah.
Fascism in the U.S. from the
1950s. That's how I know you.
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, but Lindsey, I at least can't see her on my screen, but she's here. So if it's not just me, can we add Lindsey's video feed?
I don't see. I see her in the comments, but I don't.
She's not sure how to get off backstage. Sorry for this technical crap, people who are listening. Anyway, we should move on in the meantime, probably. Hey! Hi, Lindsey.
Hi,
so nice to see you.
Wait, Seth got out of saying his TV show. That's not fair.
Yeah,
yeah, you're right. All right, Seth, go.
I'm terrible at this stuff, and I was mostly parenting during the Obama era. So the TV shows I was watching were shows I was watching with my kid, and so I can't remember the name of it. It was the show where people would come on and dance, and then.
So you think you can dance?
You think you can dance? That's what it was. And it was it was so pleasurable and joyful and just like watching people do amazing things with their bodies who you wouldn't have otherwise like known. And so it was just a really light, joyful, but just watching people just do amazing things.
It really made me appreciate dancing a lot more. Like, it really is an art.
Yeah, no, the expressive aspects of it were, and to be watching it with a 10-year-old or 11-year-old or whatever, and watching him just kind of finding delight in what other people were doing was really pleasurable.
So we'll go to Kennedy. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on, and it's great to be a part of such a wonderful panel of folks too. So many folks that I've enjoyed for a long time here today. So I'm Kennedy Cooper. I'm a general internet media personality type. I do digital political media professionally. I primarily work with an organization here called Kids Cook that has existed for 25 years, teaching kids to cook in the schools and at camps and things like that, doing all of their outreach, fundraising, and digital media. I also work with organizations around the country improving their storytelling collection campaigns, things like that. What's tough about this TV show thing is I feel like some of the TV shows of that era, like, we're not allowed to say that we liked House of Cards anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like there's some TV shows from that era that really have soured for various reasons. So I'm thinking back on what I liked from that era. It was a little tough. I really had to dig deep, but I did come up with an interesting cut. If anyone remembers, Mr. Selfridge was a British period drama from that era about a department store's kind of rise and fall. And it's actually a pretty interesting anti-capitalist story in a lot of ways. And it's just something that I personally, as a period drama type of person to some extent, enjoyed. So there's a shout out to a show most people won't mention, but also I have to give a quick shout out to Breaking Bad because I am a Burkenier here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So do love that show as well. Thanks for mentioning it, Ak.
So, like on your whole thing about on House of Cards, I feel like I feel like there are all kinds of people that were involved with that show. Like only one person involved with that show was an asshole. And like all kinds of people lost their jobs because he's an asshole. So I don't feel like we need to blame everybody because he's an asshole. And if you enjoyed the show, you enjoyed the show.
No, definitely not. I just think it's funny looking back. I was like thinking on shows from that era. I'm like, some of those shows have aged strange.
Yeah, some or like even Friends before that, or Seinfeld, where they just had no minority characters on it at all, almost. And
it was like, more than that.
Like you live and you learn, right? So
yeah,
it's like you can't judge Leave It to Beaver by 2020 standards. Now it'd be Leave It to Beavis. Sorry. Okay, so Ryan, how you doing?
Doing good here. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate being in community with everybody here. For the most part, I am a bartender by trade to pay the bills, but I do a lot of human rights work, advocacy work, going around the world, giving various lectures, talks to all sorts of people. Was just in Sydney, Australia for a peace conference. But in terms of shows during that era, I mean, I'll just say that I was I really appreciated the Lonely Island years of SNL, so I'm just gonna put that down.
So okay, thanks for that. And my order keeps changing up every time something happens. All right, so we're gonna go to Dana.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here. I'm Dana Fisher. I'm a professor at American University. I run the Center for Environment, Community, and Equity there. I do a lot of work on democratic participation, democracy, protest activism, and some of you may know me as the apocalyptic optimist, which is is my vibe, and I think it's going to probably be the thing that I will go down on. That's the hill I'm going down on. With regard to TV shows, my phone, I had to turn my phone off because it was making everything buzz, so I wasn't able to search while we were doing this. So I'm going to go with White Collar, which I know was mentioned before, and I will tell you why, though, because first of all, rest in peace, Mazzy, and second of all, redistribution of the wealth, taking a new turn on that. I think there's lots to learn there. I would have liked to see more women characters, but it was the era.
It was. Yeah, that was a good show. I like the relationship between the FBI guy and the felon guy. I thought, it's like we always look at after like Moonlighting almost. It was always like you always had to have the male female, and like then Dana and Fox and all of that. You always had to have this romantic tension between the two main leads, and I like the way that kind of took that out of it. It was a good relationship between two men.
It was a nice romance.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like we've made progress on relationships between female characters that don't involve male characters or crushes or whatever. We've made some progress on that. But I feel like, like just men having a relationship together is kind of, like we need to have more of that kind of thing, like where you just have two guys that have a friendship, So, yeah, good show. All right.
Or we could just have no guys altogether.
Not to say that we have.
I'm just teasing.
Like I'm not saying that we don't have a misogyny in our society.
I know. I'm being an ass.
Like
all right.
Sometimes, anyway.
Sorry.
So, Lindsey, which is also
Thanks.
the name of my sister-in-law, by the way.
Oh wow. Well, it's a common name in a certain era. I kind of hated having that name, but that's why I give my daughter a more original name. But it's a very nice name for your sister-in-law. I'm Lindsey Boylan. I'm glad to see so many friends here that I know. And sorry for my delay in getting on. I'm pretty technologically unsophisticated, in spite of being online every day. And I've been in politics, and most recently, I've been really engaged in the anti-Cuomo campaign and helping to make sure Zoran Mamdani gets elected. And we were hoping that would be over after the primary, for all intents and purposes, but it's not. So we get to take down a monster one more time, and hopefully that's the last time, and I can get back to doing good work in and around government and not doing this fight anymore. But it's been fun to use some of my skills in that way. And I would say, I was trying to think of a TV show. I really liked Weeds a lot.
Great show.
I'm originally from San Diego, and just the play on, this fantastical kind of storyline and the characters. I loved Weeds.
Didn't that show also like kind of accurately predict the legalization of marijuana and the series finale?
Yeah, and yes, and I think it did. It had some weird turns, but I really enjoyed it, and I think she's a great actress. So I'd have to go with that one. And it was kind of like oddly warped in a warped way, very hopeful. So I really liked it.
Can I suggest for you if you ever start a podcast, I would suggest the name of it would be The Boiling Point.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Maybe I will. Thank you. I will credit you if I end up doing that.
Okay. And then last, but not at all least, Pastor Ben. Are you a Christian, Pastor Ben?
just a little bit, right? No, Pastor Ben. Most people just know me as Benjamin Dixon from the Benjamin Dixon Show. Been doing political commentary now almost over a decade. Sam Cedar reminded me of how long I've been in the game, so now I'm understanding all the gray hairs I have. I am publicly facing with my Christianity. Never was a hidden thing, but I always believed in the separation of church and state. And so as I taught politics, my faith always manifested through progressivism. And so there was no need for me to force, but we're living in a different age where Christianity is so weaponized against all the rest of us that, I had to speak out from my original source. That said, my favorite show ever, still period, even now, but during the President Obama years, was the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors from Doctor Who, or was it the 8th, 9th, and 10th? The Matt Smith era, the David Tennant era, and of course the first guy who came back, I can't think of his name, but anyway, Doctor Who was my favorite series during the Obama years.
The guy that was with what's her name, Piper or whatever.
Yes. Actually, no. That's Peter Capaldi. So I definitely remember him. I think he might still be my favorite of all times, but I can't really time him. My memory is escaping me whether or not he was during the Obama years.
But I know what you mean. Like when the reboot happened, and it was it was like really, really well done.
Yes. Those years, those were the best years for me in terms of the Doctor Who series. Yeah.
So I spent 15 years as a campus minister. So I'm with you. I feel like I always like to say Jesus rode a donkey, but he never rode an elephant.
That's good. I like it.
I feel like we need to reclaim what it means to be a Christian. We're a faith of love, not a faith of hate.
Absolutely.
And what we exhibit, what Christian nationalism exhibits is hate. It's not love. There's nothing kind to them. And to me, kindness is love expressed. Like, you can't have love if you don't express it. And when you express it, it's expressed as kindness. And you don't have that expression when you're like deporting millions of people because they're brown and leaving, like taking them away from their families and stuff like that.
That part.
Which I'll use that to segue into my first question that we can discuss is like, we'll take it all together, but like, Alligator Alcatraz and mass deportations and Stephen the Vampire Miller and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll just go back to Pam here, and in the lovely state of Florida, if I remember correctly.
Yes, indeed.
So we'll start with you since it's close to home.
I mean, it's close to home on so many levels. You know, there was a saying from slave days of alligator bait, which was the idea that slave owners down in that area would, you know, intimidate and bully slaves and terrorize them by feeding their babies to alligators and leaving them in the swamps and so on. And so it was never funny for us, right? Like it's never been funny to me. I've been in those swamps for a hot second. I have no desire to ever go back. But the theory was that they would put them there so that it would be isolated and nobody would come check and nobody would come look. It was really to create the distance and the separation from society so that they could do whatever they want. But it's a concentration camp. I think it should be called Alligator Auschwitz, and a lot of people do. It's a concentration camp, right? It's a place where people are confined without the ability to talk to the outer world. And we don't know what's going on inside, and that's especially designed to be that way. And the question is, why? If you want to deport somebody, just deport them, right, to their own country that they came from. If you don't want to do that, and if you think they've committed a crime, then try them, you know, actually try them. If they've already committed a crime and they've already done the time, then come up with some better reason to deport them. That is not sending them to a concentration camp in El Salvador or Rwanda or in Florida is all the same. It's still a concentration camp, and it's still meant to be punitive, right?
Yeah.
Being an illegal, you know, being an undocumented person is not a crime in and of itself. It is a civil trespass, not a criminal one. So my thing that keeps shocking me, it doesn't shock me that Stephen Miller convinced an entire administration to do this. It does not shock me that there's enough racism and bigotry in the GOP to justify doing this. What shocks me is that our courts are not absolutely shutting this down, because the due process provisions in the Constitution apply to every person in this country, regardless of their immigration status. So I don't understand where there's this blockade of the courts not saying, hey, you can't do this. Where's that? And I'm not an immigration lawyer. I'm an employment lawyer, right? And I know what's happening in the federal courts that are blocking us from being able to help federal workers. I can tell you all about that. I can't understand why simply disappearing people in the middle of the night and dumping them in some swamp in the middle of nowhere is not something that's being enjoined by our courts.
Did you know, I was looking up what are the legal standards for keeping war criminals, like what, you know, the and prisoners of war. Alligator Alcatraz is not qualified to even keep prisoners of war or war criminals, and we're keeping people that aren't even accused of crimes in those conditions. Like they get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning to move cells just to torture them and deprive them of sleep. So what do you think, Awkward? I know that human rights is definitely a real part of your heart.
My first thought is that the reason that this is allowed to happen is because it's been happening for so long. 75% of people in jail in this country have not been convicted of a crime, just for instance. And when you look at the local politics all the way up to national politics, it includes boards of education, for instance, it includes sheriff's departments, and it includes judges. So this like wave of white nationalism didn't just start recently, and it didn't start with Trump, and it's not just at the federal level. So to me, you know, I mean, in 2020, when we co-founded 10 Demands, an abolitionist organization, one of the 10 demands, one of the parts of one of the demands was to abolish ICE. And there are groups, if not now, and Never Again Action, who were saying all the way back then, never again is now. And we all let it happen then. We all been letting it happen at our local levels, not caring enough to prevent these people from getting appointed. So, you know, and this is the terrifying results. To me, the most shocking part, because none of it's really shocking. I'm not shocked at this point because we all know who Stephen Miller is, but just as, you know, as a Jew, a Palestinian Jew for what it's worth, but as a Jew, I can't fathom a Jew doing this. That's the part that blows my mind. Stephen Miller is a Nazi Jew, and there are black Nazis too. For anyone who's not familiar, I can name a couple. There are Asian Nazis. The head of the Proud Boys is Hispanic. Anyway, that's it for me for now.
All right. So Kennedy, I was thinking about this yesterday, and we spent $45 billion. We are in the so-called big, beautiful bill, which is only big and a bill. But we spent $45 billion on new detention centers. And so I was just thinking about this. We're spending all this money on new detention centers, and we're allegedly shutting the borders, and we're doing these mass deportations. So why do we need these $45 billion in new permanent detention centers? If we're getting rid of all the undocumented people and nobody's allowed to come across the border, what's going to happen to those detention centers?
Well, you know, first of all, I just want to say, as somebody who lives, you know, at least relatively near the border and goes to the border more often than the average person, you know, that it's so frustrating to be the subject of the fascist myth, and that, you know, just the idea that we even needed the things that they've made so far is unnecessary. So, of course, these new steps are wildly unnecessary. But you know, the point is not to stem the flow of human trafficking. The point is that the U.S. government wants a bigger cut of the money from human trafficking. And that is the point of so many of these policies. If you look at how they are structuring it, it's not to stop people from coming in here. It is to create a cycle of making it harder to come in, more expensive to come in, and making sure that the federal government gets increasingly large cuts of people's money every time they have to come and go for various reasons. This is just a purely punitive money-making cycle that has no basis in reality. Again, I live near the border. I live in a border state, one of the states with the most border presence. Oh my gosh. It's obviously madness here. No, it's not. I love it here. In fact, I moved back here. I traveled this country living in different places and decided, nah, Albuquerque was actually the spot. I'm going back there. New Mexico is beautiful. It's vibrant. It's a lovely place. And right now, a lot of that beauty and vibrance is being cut, you know, dead in its tracks by stuff like, you know, we have alerts coming out for the anime convention in the fall. ICE agents may be at the anime convention. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, is this really something that we're supposed to accept as normal? Holy shit. You know, they're showing up at Walmarts, and I will say the local government is starting to just barely address this. It's not enough, but like even our like liberal local government has started to be like, our lib ass mayor, I never expected this from him, came out and was like, you know, you can just buy an ice jacket on Amazon. And I think that's kind of concerning. And it was like, wow, yeah, you think, but it's like, why aren't more people saying this? You know?
I agree. Like even people getting nabbed in like going to their green card hearing and stuff like that, like they're waiting in immigration courts to like arrest people, and it's like you can't ask people to do it legally and then arrest them for trying to do it legally. So Dana, your thoughts?
Well, I think that, I mean, first of all, in a lot of ways, the expansion of the carceral state is part of the Trump administration's intention. And, it does, consolidate power and consolidate capital, which I think Kennedy was talking about and other people were mentioning, which is really terrifying. I mean, I would just say that it's interesting to think about Alligator Alcatraz versus other places where ICE is detaining people right now. I was just out in LA earlier in the month. We actually were out there doing a project around folks who were working to respond and recover to the wildfires, but we ended up spending a day in search of ICE and looking for the military that had been deployed. And it was really interesting because I was there with a bunch of grad students, and we basically walked around all of downtown LA and couldn't find one person from the military, one police officer or a protester. We saw a lot of graffiti. And it was just so interesting to look at the way, I mean, this goes to what Kennedy was talking about. I mean, it's not a border area at all, but this way that people are presenting the terrifying spaces in our country to support this kind of expansion of the state to reduce our freedoms, reduce our capacity to move around, to incarcerate people, or to disappear them in some cases. So I think that there's something very scary going on, and we all need to be paying more attention, not less, which is something that Awkward was mentioning before.
I think we make this, like the MAGAs make this argument about the legality of things. Like they broke the law. But I was thinking yesterday, I'm working on an article, and it's like, if you have to do what is immoral to maintain what is legal, then the question should be about changing the law, not arresting the people that are breaking the law. Like you can't justify Jim Crow laws or, people that were breaking Jim Crow laws or, by, and the abuse of those by saying, well, they broke the law. They broke an immoral law. The problem is the law, not the people breaking it. And I think that there's something to be said like that about, like crossing the border. We've made breaking the law into the immoral thing, not separating parents from their children, the immoral thing. So Seth, since you're the history professor here,
Yeah.
I think maybe it'd be good to go to you on this. What is our history when it comes to like immoral things versus illegal things?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been thinking, listening to what folks are saying, and I think there are two pieces here that are important to be attentive to. One, Pam brought up about the law, the legal context of what's happening, right, and the way that the law is being weaponized in this incredibly cruel way, right, to apprehend completely law-abiding people, right, who may have a misdemeanor around overstaying, and even in many cases, these folks haven't actually even done anything wrong, right, and then the complicity then of ICE and other groups that facilitate this just aggressive use of state power, right, to apprehend people and then send them elsewhere. So that there's the legal piece of it, which is hard to fight when you have no power, right? When the Republican Party sort of controls everything. The states are trying to do things, right, to push back localities. But the other part of it that's sort of more immediately apparent to me as someone who kind of, this is a terrible hobby to have, but I sort of follow Oregon Republicans on Facebook and in social media just to see what folks are talking about, what the discourse is like. And I think what Donald Trump has really succeeded in doing is creating a media attentional environment in which the fear is just all present and ever saturated and completely disconnected from the actual reality of people's lives, right? So that if you live in rural Oregon, you rarely see an undocumented person. If you do, you drive past them as they're working in the field, right? 12 hours a day that you drive past. But there's no huge crime wave happening in rural Oregon and these other places. This is not destabilizing to your life. Your job has not been taken, right, by an undocumented person. But this is the reality. This is the experiential reality that people have, right? This is the world that they live in. And so that terror and fear, and to the capacity for someone like Trump to just, they throw out this thing about Obama committed treason, right? And and then you look on social media, and these are not bots. I understand there's a lot of bot activity out there, but these are real people who are in social media groups around Republican politics in Oregon, and I don't know how you counter that perception that there's an invasion, for example, the idea that we've been invaded. And it's a powerful rhetorical device. It works for a lot of people. And it's completely false, and it doesn't square with people's lived realities. But that then is used to then push forward a whole bunch of policies that flow from that starting premise, right? That there is an invasion. If we are being invaded, then obviously we need to activate the Alien Enemies Act, which is from the start so ludicrous, right? The idea that you would just accept this as a valid thing that the president is doing. Anyway, I'm going up, but I feel like there's a connection between this authoritarian push that's happening from Stephen Miller and the federal government, and then the willingness of people who I think of themselves as believers in limited government and small government and personal freedom. And obviously the racism explains a lot of the things that people will tolerate, right, of what's happening. But I think there's also even more to it there too, that the seedbed for the acceptance of these draconian actions on the part of a lot of our fellow citizens. I don't know what we can do about that, but that is the part that really kind of is especially terrifying to me as someone who kind of knows the history of mass vigilante violence in the US and around the world, and how that is connected to this shift from a fascist political culture to an actual implemented fascist regime. And
so were our founding fathers for open borders?
The history of immigration is so complicated. So the Alien Enemies Act, for example, is from 1798. And one of the things that was implemented at that same time were the Alien Act, right? And the Sedition Act. And so there was a huge push to kick out Irish immigrants in 1798 on the part of the Federalists. And of course, this was all political because the Irish immigrants were starting to vote more and more Jeffersonian. And so the Federalists wanted to get the Irish out because they were worried that they were good, waspy Americans were being replaced by the horrific scourge of Irish Catholics. And so, right, so there's definitely that kind of nativism, right? Nativism has been a part of American culture from the start, but there was also kind of countervailing pressures as well, right? And so, there's no kind of like foundational moment of like America was open borders and then we derive from that, and so we just need to return to this true thing that we really are. I don't think that's what's going to get us out of this. I mean, it's we have to build a consensus as to who we are, right, as a nation, and what it means to belong as a nation. And the history isn't gonna. There's no kind of thing from the past that we can bring into the present, and everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, you're right." Right? Because George Washington said this is what we should do in 2025.
Just one more thing. Would you like to introduce us to our guest star behind your left shoulder?
Yes, this is Misty, who is 14 years old and, kind of maybe getting near the end, but is still super loving and sweet and everything else. Yes. And our other cat might show up, but I think he's doing some very important napping right now.
Mine, that's what they tend to. Mine, we had to put under on July 4th because he had like cancer behind his eye. So every time I see a kitty now, my heart goes out. I saw Awkward's earlier, but he's been on the show before.
Yeah, we had a nice cat butt moment there, which is always a feature of any.
Used to be the first thing I'd see in the morning, and the last thing I'd see before I go to bed at night was my cat's butthole.
So all right, you can't curse, but you can say that. That's something.
So Ben, I'd like to get your thoughts on this whole morality versus legality thing too.
Well, no, I think you all completely nailed that part, right? There's some laws that are immoral. And so the only righteous and just thing is to oppose them, even if it makes us look like we are illegal. There's a difference between legality and morality. And we see that through constantly through a through line in the United States of America. But, you know, towards the question of the fascism and the carceral state, I think one thing that's always necessary to accomplish the level of the goal. Let me start there. What's necessary to accomplish the goal of Project 2025, which is the goal of imperialism, ultimately, has always been a scapegoat. That's also a through line through world history, American history, the need of a scapegoat. Because without that scapegoat and the willingness of the people, watch this, who are going to be harmed the most, right? As I look at the deportations, I'm starting to look at it kind of differently when you consider what Project 2025 is trying to do to democracy, what Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing at HHS, when you consider what they're doing economically, they're certainly taking America into a new type of dark ages, an age of pestilence, particularly with our health, public health, or lack thereof, destruction of the education department. I mean, they honestly, just a little tongue in cheek, but they might be doing these immigrants a favor to get them out of Babylon before Babylon falls, to get them out of Egypt before the plagues commence. And so when people threaten me, once you go back to Africa, I'm like, here's my GoFundMe. Help me get there, because to get out of here before Project 2025 is fully implemented isn't a cursing. That's a blessing. And for
Yes.
this white America, this Republican MAGA class to fully embrace it. Like, yes, give it to us, give it to us, give it to us. How else do you get people to be complicit with their own demise and their own death, except have a scapegoat that they can blame everything on the front end? And I think that's the backbone of what's happening right now.
So we'll just go to Lindsey next. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I've enjoyed the conversation. The only thing I would add, kind of trying to tie a few things together, is, and especially based in New York, it's all connected, kind of finding the scapegoat. And of course, immigrants are perfect ones. And in this case, I'll add people protesting a genocide. So Mahmoud Khalil, I think we all know, just missed the birth of his child while in detention. This is connected to Alligator Alcatraz. It's all part of the same thing. It's all part of not only demonizing people, but also silencing protest. So not only do we want to have someone to blame, for the government to blame, but we also want to make it harder for people to speak out. This is at the same time in New York as we also have most of our big white shoe law firms willing to work on behalf of Trump, which means they can never appear on the opposite side of him in litigation in the future. So it's a much bigger project than even their willingness to support him and give him a blank check. Having Colombia just yesterday settle with the federal government and give $200 million for this, flimsy, phony supposed attack on students and various things that they said they will still hold on to. The government is really finding ways to say, be quiet. We will be punitive to institutions that can fight us, whether they be the big law firms that could challenge us in federal courts, or they be the institutions that are raising the next generation of leaders, or they be the students who are protesting and fighting against the administration. This is all a very thoughtful process. And the only other thing I would add about immigration court, because I wanted to be an immigration attorney until I realized what that actually entailed, having worked at two different firms in my 20s, they have very little say. Immigration law, unlike other areas, is just the last thought of the train, so to speak, in terms of there's very little leeway unless you're some genius visa holder or something like that, or applicant. Everything is prescribed by legislation that has nothing to do with immigration courts. It's one of the kind of least invested in, least leeway areas. And so, of course, all of the lawsuits that need to happen have to happen in appellate courts related to broader rights infringements. And who's going to do that when you have all the big law firms unwilling to do the representation. A lot of the nonprofits that are being maligned and attacked for funding revenue streams. And even I'll say one more thing, in the various protests that I've led in, or helped lead in the last few months, we've actually told people not to attend if you are not a US citizen. And that's not because we don't want them, but it's because of a fear of our inability to protect them. And that is a really scary thing, a really scary reality to come to. And so add all these things that everyone has been saying and just the few pieces that I added, and you see a really scary fascist picture that we have to do a ton of work to oppose. And a lot of that necessarily probably will be civil disobedience related to unjust laws on the books.
I've done some research on that. I'm not a lawyer, unlike you or Pam, but I've I just done some research on, people are always saying get in line, like they should just get in line like everybody else. And so I was like, what line? And I looked up some. There is no line. There's literally no line. There is no.
Get in the lottery. Get in the lottery, and it's
There's
not
the
even a fair
lottery,
lottery.
which is not a line, and your chances of that are like equal to winning the actual lottery.
Yes.
I think it's like, what do they give, 50,000 lottery visas a year, and there's like 50 million people that apply. So it's like really almost impossible to win that, and you have to be, only certain countries are even eligible. There is no line. There's temporary visas, which are almost impossible to get unless you live in Mexico. There is no line. There's just no line.
And the only way around that has typically been like EB-5 funding.
Right way, have no idea what the immigration laws are. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the only way around that has to do with capital and wealth. And big surprise, that has not been the first thing that the government has gone after, because it would affect too many of their friends. And I don't think they're going after Trump's landscapers. That's why they're trying to scare people and create a system where they can make personal choices for their own benefit. And that's even more fascist, right?
Yeah.
It's helpful that some people get to evade this terrible, inhumane, unjust system, but that all just it enhances this unfairness of it and this opaqueness of it. And that's the intention, right?
It's infuriating that, like, how much they depend on their populace to be ignorant, that they don't even know when they're being lied to. So Ryan, what are your thoughts on all that?
I think that everyone has certainly painted a pretty bleak picture of what's going on out there. I've seen here. I'm currently living in Bushwick in New York, and I am seeing ICE agents walking up and down the street in the neighborhood, going through the public parks. And I mean, I'm shouting at them from across the street, trying to say like, "Hey, why are you here? What are you doing? Why are you bothering my neighbors?" But if you get too up in their face, then they can charge you. They can take you away. That is something that at this present moment I cannot afford. I have a lot of friends who are from other countries. I grew up with a lot of people. I grew up in South Florida, so as we were talking with Alligator Alcatraz, the Everglades is literally a bike ride away from my home growing up. I really found quite disgust with that facility being created. I even wrote an article about it on Substack, and just investigated how this country has always had that, as we've talked about, as Seth really talked about, that history of immigration and the sort of immoral repression that we've seen going on. And I had the honor, I'll say real quick, one time to meet the late great John Lewis. And when we met him, it was, to go a little deeper, I am a survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida. I'm a co-founder of the March for Our Lives organization, fought up to create a lot of laws for gun violence prevention. We have saved a lot of lives, helped a lot of people. Not enough. There's, of course, a real epidemic going on. But when I met the Congressman, John Lewis, at the time, we spoke about his work. We spoke about good trouble. And I wanted to highlight that phrase, that call to action that I use in a lot of lectures that I'll give to students all over the country, all over the world. And it's just the fact that there are unjust laws, there are immoral lawmakers, there are immoral governments, and the people I believe in a fundamental human right for the mutual benefit of all of humanity, and to uplift that is something very, 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 very important to me. And in the sense of good trouble, we must not allow the law in itself to hold us back. But of course, how do we do that? I mean, that is something that I was sort of presented in being told to come here. And I just want to speak to that solidarity action, the fact that we have to come together, we have to pool our resources. That doesn't just mean money, that means our time, our effort, our care, to uplift each other, to ensure. I tell all my friends who are from other countries, regardless of their status presently, if they are a full citizen, if they were even born here, if they have no papers at all, I tell them, make sure you're telling people that you love, that you care about, where you are at any given time. Because we've heard many, many stories recently of our friends being taken from the streets, being taken from their homes, and we don't know, God knows where they are, for days at a time, weeks at a time. Some people have still yet to be found as they're bounced around all these concentration camps. And I just want to highlight again, with highlighting the environmental movement and how this highlights the Stop Cop City movement in Atlanta and those urban warfare centers. Like this is, I see this fundamentally as we are, in a sense, at war. And this was impressed upon us. This is not something we have chosen, I believe, as a people. I think we want to live our lives decently. We want to just be good people. But what we have to do, like I'm saying, just to finish off, just to wrap this all up, is that solidarity element. Think about everybody listening, think about everybody here, how we can help each other in what we do day to day, how we can help each other through this time, because this is a very dark time for a lot of people. It's very hard to see hope. I find it in friends. I find it in the ability to let loose every now and then. But of course, that is not a privilege that everybody has. So just finding whatever your strength is, whatever it is we can do together. Thank you.
I wanted to just piggyback on what Ryan said. You know, he tells people, if you are on the lowest of the totem pole with the highest risk, take the fewest chances with your status. But based on that theory, I want to talk about the other side, which is the people with the most power and protection, the members of Congress, the people in the Senate, the people in government. They have the most legal protection. They have the most status and visibility, and they're the least willing to put anything on the line. And so it is my firm opinion, and I'm sure the panel may agree or disagree, that this isn't going to get resolved in a year and a half at the polls. They're not going to allow that, right? If we're going to turn this ship around, if we're going to do anything to save democracy, it's going to be in a novel, unexpected, different, confrontational kind of way. And I think part of the problem is that we are screaming at ICE. ICE ain't listening. We are screaming at the administration. The administration is not listening. We need to be screaming to the people who we need our money and our votes to say, no, 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 it is unacceptable that you think filibustering a non-bill or speaking for 10 hours is action. That's not action. Action is denying quorum to the Congress and shutting it down altogether. That's action, right? Action is shutting down the quorum in Texas and stopping the gerrymandering and absenting yourself and coming up with a strategy to pay, feed, and hide legislators so that they can't take away our rights. Action is gerrymandering the hell out of blue states. Action is simply no longer being willing to play along with the game. And that is going to create a crisis, but we're already in a crisis. And it's a crisis, as Ryan articulately said, that we didn't create or ask for. They wanted war. They called it civil war all this time. It's damn time that left-leaning people start accepting that we are at war, whether we want to be or not. And when we are at war, you got to ask, well, who are your warriors? Who's on the field? Who are your warriors? Who are your generals? And what are their resources? And our problem is that Democrats in particular are a one-trick pony. They when you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, this problem is not a nail. It is not something that can get legislated out. It's not something that can get confronted in the next election in good ads and polling and consultants telling you how to frame it for the next debate. That's not what's going on here, right? And all of us that are on this panel have ancestors who have faced the kind of real in-your-face battle that we now face. Maybe they faced it 50 years ago, like my ancestors. Maybe they faced it 100 years ago. Maybe they faced it 1,000 years ago. But all of us are here because someone in our ancestry faced down, stared down the kind of despotic nonsense we're seeing now and somehow survived it. They didn't survive it by praying it would go away or voting it out or wishing that it would go away. That's not how you confront something like this. And we just haven't come to peace with the idea that ordinary, normal course of business can somehow fix this, because that's what we want. We want to feel like we can keep going to work and keep doing our job and keep supporting our organizations and keep doing things the way we've done them. And somehow, the MAGA will come to their senses. They'll see the light. They'll turn the page. They'll abandon this guy. We're very much hoping this Epstein thing will blow up his presidency. It doesn't matter whether it blows up his popularity or not. He has total control of the government and he's not going anywhere, right? Confrontation requires something else. And I keep posting about this idea that our leaders, those who asked us to trust them with leadership, are not confronting the need for actual leadership. Actual leadership is not telling us how bad it is or telling us how much we should hate the other side. Actual leadership is saying, hey guys, this is the plan. If your last name is between A and C, this is how you are going to block stuff. If your last name starts with D through G, this is how you are going to block stuff. If your last name is G through K, this is how you are going to block stuff. This is where we're organizing. This is where you show up. These are the industries we're going to shut down. These are the transportation systems we're going to shut down. These are the things that we're going to block. Who's doing that? Because that's leadership. The team is not just the people who have titles. The team is everybody in America who loves democracy and the Constitution. And nobody's willing to consider us players in the game. They're hoping we figure it out amongst ourselves. That's why they're such big fans of grassroots movements and grassroots organizing. Well, so am I. But this is a bigger problem than any grassroots organization can fix. We need top-down leadership here, and we need somebody to step into the gap and say, you know what? Follow me. I may be wrong, but at least I'm moving. And here's how you can help me move.
And sorry, Pam, I was only going to say, everyone listening, you could have had her. She ran, Just saying.
But that's probably why you don't. Because I wouldn't be filibustering and giving a 9-hour speech to total Pyrrhic nonsense.
Yeah,
I
clearly.
would be telling everybody, okay, Y'all are disappearing into West Virginia. Y'all are disappearing into Nebraska. Y'all are disappearing into the Virgin Islands. Y'all are disappearing into Mexico, and we will not have a quorum. So that if you want to pass the big, beautiful betrayal, y'all gonna have to do it without a quorum and see whether it sticks.
Beautiful betrayal.
Love
So,
it.
like, if I can summarize, there's no leadership without risk.
There's no leadership without risk, and there's no leadership without comprehending who is your army, who are your soldiers, right? The Democratic Party thinks far too much that the people who are elected are the team. That is not the team. The people doing the electing is the team. And the team has capacities, immense, immense capacities that we are not organizing, we are not structuring, we are not giving goals, we are not giving guidance, we are not giving projects, we are not doing anything. We're just hoping they figure it out amongst themselves. Luckily, many of us are galvanizing to figure it out as best we can. But when you have a national problem, you need a national response.
Amen.
And so we were in that group talking about, we should do a strike, we should do a workout, a lockout, we should do a national this, that, the other thing. We are not in a position to do national things, but you know who could galvanize all of us to do something nationally? Barack Obama could do that. He's already done his service as president. Maybe it's not him, but somebody with that degree of national visibility has to say, I'm stepping up. And I'm not talking about I'm stepping up to run for office so you could vote for me the next time, because that's what Peter's doing, right? I don't want to talk to anybody who's talking to me about elections, because we are seeing too many signs that this next election is not going to be kosher. We are seeing too many signs that we are never going to get a chance for a free and fair election. So don't put your eggs in that basket. And by the way, can we really wait that long? People are dying now. People are going to lose their medical care now. People are not going to be able to afford their insulin now. How long can our diabetics go without insulin? How many babies are going to be born without any Medicaid to cover their birth costs? Like, what are we talking about? My problem right now is that Democrats have a tendency to do, sadly, what we're doing, and I love you guys. I love you all and I respect you all, but we lament. We don't plan. And lament time is over. Right? Like, we need to start talking, spend our time purely on plan. How do we obstruct, resist, and prevent? Period. That's what we should be talking about. If we're not going to have health care in this country, then how do we build an army of traiteurs and healers who can step in and help at home-based clinics, community-based help? How can we do that? If we're going to lose free public education, which is clearly on the horizon, then how do we build a team of people that are educating online, on YouTube, and getting kids the education they need? Like, how are we doing that? If we're going to lose food assistance through SNAP, then we ought to be having a band of people buying land right now to put gardens all over our cities, vegetable growing all over the place, so that we can feed people and teach them how to feed themselves. Who's doing that? We're sitting here lamenting what's happening rather than accepting that it's happening and doing everything to thwart its impact. That is leadership. And that, I think, is what people are hungry for. Some voice that says, hey, here's the plan. We're not going to let everybody starve. We're going to do everything to stop people from starving. And if we have to organize every house in the community so that each house rotates the day that they're making PB&Js for the kids, then that's what we do.
I've been asking this question on this show for like months. Like, what do you want to see Democrats to do? Like, stop complaining about what they're not doing. What should they actually do? You are the first person that's been on this show that has actually articulated something they should do. So I just applaud what you're saying. Like, this is what we need. We need to think about answers, not just criticisms.
Exactly. I hate to dominate the conversation because we have so many brilliant people and so many good people on this panel, but this has been sitting on my heart, and I've been posting about it, and I'm trying to get people to say we have to shift into a completely different direction. We need to tell our elected officials that if you want to be a leader, you may not have wanted to be a leader so that you could do something other than legislate, but too bad, so sad, you asked for it, you fought for it, and there you are, which means that we should be dividing up the I don't know, 200 something members of Congress into small teams that are responsible for leading on certain issues, not fighting the Republicans about passing legislation about it, but recognizing that there's going to be an immediate and necessary exigent need in the American people. And they have to stand up as leaders and say, this is how we're going to address this need as best we can, understanding that we're not going to be able to fix what government is taking, but we have to be able to mitigate that while we galvanize the people to step up and step in for their country and for their fellow countrymen.
I want to just jump in just because I have to leave in a few minutes, just to say, I think what you're saying is so important, Pam, and thank you for saying it. I actually would just argue, slightly differently based on, my many years of research studying people power, is just to say that as much as I think that asking people who have been elected and actually have the power to step in, unfortunately, I think many of them are not going to. And I think that they've already proven themselves to be not up to that job. Instead, I think what needs to happen is they need to be told they either need to step up or get out of the way. Because there are plenty of people in communities across the country who are starting to recognize the need that you're talking about. And I think that we need to figure out who those leaders are and lift them up and empower them to start to help to take care of one another, because we are going to have to do it for ourselves, supporting one another, and push everybody who's not willing to take on those types of tasks out of the way. Because if they're not part of the solution, they are the problem. I mean, obviously they are not MAGA, but they are enforcing and empowering and facilitating Project 2025. And we've been seeing that with the Democratic Party since January 21st. And that has to end. So that's how
I just would like to say, and I know Pam will agree with this based on her history, is that the party itself doesn't facilitate the means to do that. Like, the party protects its own. My brother, for instance, is running for office in Texas to try and flip a red seat, and he can't even get any support. So I can't even imagine like trying to flip a blue seat getting help from Congress or from the Democratic Party. So I think one thing, like what Pam is alluding to, is we as just the people, we need to look really hard at who's running for office in primaries. The Democrats the Democratic Party, the DNC, is not going to be funding them. So we need to fund them so that they can have a voice, so that they can start winning the primaries, so that they can flip the seats, so that we can have actual people in Congress who care. I know 2 people that have just dropped out of running for like small local offices because they couldn't get any help. And one of them's even in a blue state. So, I mean, I just feel like we need to be much more aware, and instead of complaining about who's running after the primaries, we need to become cognizant of who is running before the primaries. We need to campaign for them. We need to finance them. We need to help them. We need to change who the Democratic Party is. And the Republicans did that in the most evil way possible. But what we can learn from them is that you can change the dynamics of a party by primarying them. And like I know that there's like that the roots, I like to say that the cancer was present long before Trump, but Trump metastasized it. He made it worse. He made the cancer grow. And so it's like MAGA is worse than the Republican Party was during Reagan, but the roots were there during Reagan. I'm not saying it's one or the other. And I think we kind of get too caught up into, oh, well, it didn't just start now, but it got worse. We didn't have concentration camps during Reagan. But we need to evolve the Democratic Party by being aware of who's going on. All right, Dana has to go. We try to stop at an hour sometimes, but sometimes we go for 2 hours. It all depends. I think everybody else can stay if anybody else needs to go.
Lindsay has to go too.
Sorry, everybody. It was so nice meeting you.
It was nice to meet you. And
yeah,
we'll see
maybe
you
Lindsay and I should also
side.
say bye, so there's not a bunch of breaks at the same time.
Okay.
For those who are listening, I hope you enjoyed this. if Machine Pun Kelly lets me, I'm going to keep working with him to organize these because I think they're at the very least very interesting, if not potentially very helpful for some of us out there in our local communities. So thank you again also for everyone to everyone who joined. I appreciate you all so much. And I wish there was a way to have you all on and give you a chance to speak even more. But it was great to meet all of you like in person.
And thanks again. Seth is like, I call him my executive producer because he's pretty much, he's connected to so many people and he keeps inviting people on. So he's like, he's on the show before the show even starts and after the show ends. He's a real
That's right.
friend to me. So
dedicated soldier. How the hell do I exit? Is it the red button over here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Peace out, y'all.
it's all right. So the next thing I wanted to get into, so I think we've kind of we're down to 5 of us. Which thanks for sticking around. We're all guys now, though. But oh well.
Well,
No,
not me.
4 guys and 1 they them. I'm sorry, Kennedy. I wanted to talk about the Epstein thing, and just there's like so many angles to this. One is that I think is getting overlooked is that there are actual victims involved, and those victims deserve justice. And so we can, like, there's a lot of debate over the list and whether there's a list or not. Well, there's files. And there are people that paid Jeffrey Epstein for the privilege of raping children. And those children are now adults, but they were victimized by him. They were traumatized by him. They deserve justice by those clients, which is the most disgusting, polite word in history, because it makes it sound like they were like just doing something legal or sound like clients. It's like, talk about glossing over. Anyway, like, those people need to go to jail. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care who it is. They belong in jail. If you pay somebody for the right to rape children because you're rich and powerful, you belong in prison. The second thing is I look at this whole thing with, like trying to get the Maxwell's or the grand jury testimony uncovered, and was all a big play to make it look, well, we tried and the judge told us no. Like, the one time they're going to accept the judge's word on something is when it helps cover up Trump. And it's like the grand jury testimony, there's all kinds of legal reasons and moral reasons that it shouldn't be revealed. The files are like much bigger than that and contain much more than that. You can always redact the names of the clients or the people that weren't accused of doing anything illegal, but you can open up the files. That's 100% in your purview. You don't need a judge's permission for that. But I feel like the whole, oh, well, we tried and the judge wouldn't let us do it, was all a big ploy to distract people from what they can do. And that doesn't even cover all the bases. So if you have like other thoughts on that you want to run with, go ahead. We'll start with Kennedy.
Yeah, well, I just like, first of all, that you called attention to this weird outrage phenomena thing that's going on, where suddenly it seems to matter more to get justice for upset QAnon followers than to get justice for victims. Like, that's clearly skewed in a really nasty direction. And that's part of why I currently don't have faith in the idea that this is going to be the thing that breaks Donald Trump and brings MAGA around or anything like that, is because there's still just too much of a sense of like, these folks don't care about anything good coming out of this. They care about their own personal sense of validation and entitlement. They feel entitled to know this stuff. And in some cases, want to know it not in any kind of holistic or altruistic or meaningful or helpful kind of way, but in just like a true crime, like, you know, gawking at the accident as you drive by kind of way. Like, I don't trust the intentions of any of these folks at the moment. And so that makes all of this, yeah, it feels icky, right? Because we should be centering the actual victims. We should be centering the people that were harmed by these crimes. And it, you know, even further, like obviously the sexual abuse victims should be at the very, very center, but there's so many people that get harmed by these situations that we don't even talk about. You know, when if we were to really talk about all of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, they would be in the thousands, and some of them he may have never even spoken to personally, but it doesn't matter, right? Because the effects of his abuse had rippling effects through the lives of many. And so I think that, like, you know, until there's a conversation that starts to be about that, like, I don't like any of this talk right now in particular. And I don't really trust anyone involved in it at the moment that much. Rupert Murdoch leaking selective secrets and stuff, I don't trust that. You know, none of this is trustworthy. And it's just leaves it with, you know, we've turned an icky situation into something even ickier. But of course, and this will be my final point, and then I'll let somebody else take it from there, this is always the goal of these fascist types, is to create so much confusion around situations that nobody knows what's real anymore. There will be people a few years from now asking if Jeffrey Epstein was a real person, if he really existed. Like, that's the direction that we're heading.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, we're up to the point where Obama made up Russia or something like that. Probably in 6 months, Russia won't even be a country. But all right. So anyway, let's go to Seth.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, part of it is what are we talking about and who are we talking to about it? So I think the reason we talk about Jeffrey Epstein is that because people are interested in it for whatever reason, whether we like it or not, whether those reasons are good or bad or salacious or ridiculous, you know, so they're very good reasons to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, as you mentioned, right, in terms of the victims. And my sense is that, like, talking about the, like, diehard MAGA 30% is pretty useless. Like, whatever, they're not going to change their mind, and there's no point. But they matter because they are embedded in a society where they have influence over people. Right? They shape what other people think. The reason why we care about the Klan, for example, in the 80s and 90s, is not because we want to save those individual Klans members who are doing harm. It's because we're worried about the impact that their actions have on their children, on their communities, on their victims, right? And so that is the place where we focus our attention. So to me, the Jeffrey Epstein discourse is the positive piece of it, and the reason why I think some people are interested in it, is because it's about elite impunity, right? It's about the harm that people with great wealth and great power can cause other people and then get away with it. And there are kind of right-coded QAnon-ish ways to think about that, right? Oh, there's the vast conspiracy of them, and they're probably Jews or whatever who are behind this. And that's messed up. And that is absolutely not the way that we should talk about it, that any progressive should talk about it. But then there are kind of left-coded ways to talk about elite impunity, right, and power. And I think those are something that's worth talking about, right? And because that is a place where journalists, like the work that Julie Brown did to expose what Jeffrey Epstein did, this is where activists, the Me Too movement, you know, people who have been doing activism around sexual violence for decades, right, have a lot to offer about this. And where the law, in terms of the law's role in holding people accountable, regardless of how wealthy or powerful they are, if they've broken a law. And so there are lots of resources here to take the Jeffrey Epstein story that people are interested in for whatever reason and talk about, for example, what Donald Trump is doing with his meme coins and all of this other stuff, right? Or the way that what Donald Trump is doing that is corrupt, where he's engaging in actions that are harming other people in your community with a sense of impunity. And if we want a more democratic society, we want a society in which wealthy, powerful people can't just feel like they can do whatever they want to other people with impunity. And so that, to me, that is the core of the Jeffrey Epstein story that I think it's a general sense of like fairness and justice that does bring a lot of people to it and why they hate him. Some people, their hatred is kind of layered with anti-Semitism or layered with other less beneficent energies. But I think for a lot of folks, it's hard to exactly nail down or pin down what it is about the story that attracts them. And if we're just going to let right-wing conspiracy theorists control the story of what's happening there, then I think it's a kind of lost opportunity to have a conversation about power and about elite impunity.
That's a really interesting point I haven't heard before. So, okay, let's go to Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of piggybacking off of what Seth was saying with the interest in this story, it's just an extension I see of stuff like Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous, just like giving an insight into this world. I mean, it's the same thing in a similar sense with, I think, like the Diddy case, a lot of these celebrity abuse cases that you see. But ultimately, with all of this, I mean, we have some serious problems in our society that are not necessarily being addressed. I mean, look, the president of the United States is a rapist. I mean, a sexual
Not just a
abuser.
rapist, pedophile rape, like he raped children.
Allegedly. I don't know here or there on that directly. I do know the other things, so I just speak to.
He is an adjudicated rapist, though, for sure.
Yes. So my point is just that, like, when that's at the top, when that's the commander in chief, the goddamn president of the United States. I mean, just go down the chain of command. Go down. What else do you have? We have an alcoholic in charge of the Department of Defense. Somebody who has the power to wage war on most of the world if they so choose, and they're quite egotistical. They're quite short-tempered. These people. Meanwhile, they leave a lot of these types of people, not just in government, leave a large string of abuse behind them. And like we're saying, in terms of focusing on these victims, there isn't support for a lot of these people. We've seen in this Epstein case, multiple suicides. So again, allegedly, because we have conspiracies and such, but of course we have these victims of this abuse that are now dead, and it is absolutely tragic that they had to experience this. Not only what they experienced early in life, but the dragging of this injustice. The fact that you see that, sure, eventually there were some charges filed against Epstein. He ended up in custody. Ghislaine Maxwell also, but the abuse clearly extends beyond those individuals. This is a larger systemic issue. I do not know to the extent. You can talk to many different sources as to what they believe, who they believe is on these alleged lists. And regardless of if these things exist, we know what is real in terms of the pain that has been experienced by these people. And the people who are inflicting this pain have, I think, since they have done these things in the 90s, the 2000s, they seem to have gained power, whether they're in the entertainment sphere, in the political sphere, just in terms of wealth and influence. This class of people seems to have gained power. So like in what we were saying before, in not just pontificating on this and not just talking about, well, what do we think? It's, well, what can we do? It's, again, just trying to protect our loved ones, trying to ensure that abuse is not carried out where we see it, because there's only so much power we have as individuals. We can talk about the courts, we can talk about XYZ, but when it comes down to it, the president's a goddamn rapist.
Yeah.
I do not expect justice in this country in terms of governmental authority anytime soon, given the current deck of things. But in terms of each other, we can try our best to uplift victims, to give them the help they need, the support they need, be that therapy, be that community, whatever it may be.
Like I was molested as a child, just I've written about this before. And like the trauma and the not having the equipment as a 10-year-old to understand why this man molested me, especially like this was 1981, I think, 1980, like a long time ago, but before there was even awareness of these issues, and having to process that without any help. Like I just really have to say what you're saying is profound. Like we really need to like look at this from the angle of victims more than the angle of what was it? Somebody said like rich and famous. Was that you, Kennedy? Like it's almost like, oh look, he's so rich and powerful now he can rape children and get away with it. Anyway, it's just we need to remember who the victims are in these things. So Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm just listening, Machine Pun, to your testimony and the fact that this happens so much, and it is something that so many people are dealing with that follows them, and and then to see it almost codified, systemic in the approach of how they organized it, but also in how they're protecting it, how they're preventing justice from happening. And then to realize that it's all up and down the strata of society, from the White House all the way down to your local church or local school, and that they replicate that protection mechanism from the White House all the way down to the local church, to the local school, where this is happening unfortunately every day. And the fact that this is a through line through world history, right? This is something that I've been studying a whole lot lately. Is like how many of the things that we're dealing with today have been present throughout history, and how far back. And the fact is that there has always been the abuse and the predation of our children, always. And it has always been something that has been dismissed because the victims, the children, don't have any power. They don't have any voice except the voice that adults give them and provide for them and platform them and fight on their behalf. But when you have a portion of your society that's committed to harming our children, and then you have a portion of our society who's committed to being silent about that harm or actively protecting the people doing the harm, and then you're left with the residual. Those of us who may not know anything about it, may never have participated in it, but we're just looking and really not even understanding that this underbelly of society has always been here. I think it's time for those people who may have been oblivious to it to wake the hell up and realize that even just being oblivious to it is not it's not an excuse anymore. Because when you take the portion of society that's actively doing it and has been doing it for centuries through every empire had some form of this that was almost like literally it was codified in the Greek and the Roman Empire, but they created philosophies around it, right? And you have that portion of society, then you have the portion of society that does nothing about it. Who's left? That's the rest of us. And so I believe that every single one of us who are in the position that we can speak up, we need to be speaking up more than the QAnon right wingers, as I heard someone say, to make this a matter of justice for them. No, to make this a matter of aligning with. I heard someone say the anti-Semitic tropes that they're laying this at the feet of Jewish people. No. This is in every culture, every race, every religion, every empire, every epoch, every part of world history. We have seen this, and so we have to actively step up and ask ourselves the question: what kind of planet are we living on? What kind of system are we living in that not only allows this but protects it and has protected it through all these centuries? And I think that parents, and not even just parents, but just people of good faith, we need to wake the hell up. And if we're going to be active about anything, if we're going to be vigilant about anything, if we're going to be vigilante-ish, I'm gonna put a big ish at the end, asterisk mark, right? Because I still believe in due process. But if there's anything that we need to put foot to ass on, it's this.
Yeah, I mean, I would to piggyback on that. I mean, my sense is we have to have a sense of outrage about the harm and damage that people are doing, and we also have to have a positive sense of like why we are outraged about it. It's because we believe in self-determination, right, and the dignity of every individual human's life. And so, and that is not a progressive value or a leftist value. Like, that's a human value. That's a Christian value, if I can, right? That's a value that a lot of religious faiths believe in. And so, just to kind of, talk about it's like, why do we care about what Jeffrey Epstein did? We care about because of the young girls that he harmed, right? And the harm that was done to. That's why we care about it, because no child should have to suffer that. And the people who cause that suffering should be held accountable for the suffering that they cause, and we should work to repair that damage as a society. And that's what it means to live in a good society. And there are probably people who would disagree with that. Mm-hmm. Those are people who are like, okay, fine, you go do your thing and make your case for why a society premised around interpersonal cruelty is a good thing. Go ahead and try to win an election on that, right? But this is who we are, and this is what we believe in. And we don't hate Donald Trump just because he's Donald Trump, right? It's because of the damage that he did. We don't hate Jeffrey Epstein just because he's Jeffrey Epstein. We hate him because of what he did, right? And the harm that he caused. And so, and I think there's a big market out there for that affirming, positive view of kind of letting people just be who they are and want to be. Just to segue to the issue around how we talk about trans rights, for example, that there's an easy conservative position on this, which is what do you care what pronoun someone uses? How does it affect you? Does it harm you? No. Fine. So who cares? And I occasionally will see that line of kind of that argument appear in these conservative Facebook groups, and people kind of don't know what to do with it, right? But this is a conservative person who's just activating what is a fairly conservative principle, which is okay, I may not like it, but what do I care, right? It's not me. No one's forcing me to do anything. And so I feel like we have these resources in our kind of culture that are a counterweight to the kind of controlling, authoritarian, domineering kind of impulses of our current moment. And we should proudly activate those, right? And invite, if Donald Trump invites people to be their worst selves and kind of gives them permission to be their worst selves, we should be giving people permission to be their best selves, right? And we're all our worst selves and our best selves simultaneously. Mm-hmm. No one, we don't live in a Manichaean world. It's not like white hats and black hats. It's a complicated world of moral ambivalence. And we need to put our feet on the side of goodness, right? And moral righteousness in a way that invites people to activate those parts of themselves that maybe have atrophied, or that Donald Trump has been trying to squelch and destroy.
So gonna jump in right here. Kennedy, you need to go, right?
No, not me.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought,
it was me. Sorry.
oh, it was Seth. All right. Well, then, do you have anything you want to pitch before you take off, like a website or a Twitter handle or Blue Sky handle or anything?
Sure. I'm on Blue Sky under my name, and I have a Substack. Unfortunately, don't love Substack, but it's where I am. Long story, and where I will occasionally write about some of the research I've been doing on the history of the far right in Oregon. So, folks want to check that out.
All right. Thanks for jumping on. I really appreciated meeting you.
Yeah, great meeting you all. Thanks for having me.
So based on what Seth was just saying, like, this is a peeve of mine, is that, and so what we'll do now is, what MAGA talking point is your pet peeve? And so I'll go first with mine. And that is this whole idea, well, you just hate Donald Trump or you just hate whoever because he disagrees with you. And no, it is not that I hate Donald Trump because he disagrees with me. I hate what Donald Trump agrees with. He agrees with hatred. He agrees with demonizing trans people. He agrees with demonizing immigrants. He agrees with demonizing gay people. He agrees with demonizing women who want to have careers, or he agrees with demonizing women who don't want to carry babies that are fathered by men they don't want to have in their lives for the rest of their lives. Like, there are a host of reasons, a host of things that Trump sells that I hate. And I don't hate them because I'm intolerant. I hate them because those views are intolerant. I hate intolerance. And, you know, this idea that, like, oh, I just hate him because I'm the problem. No, I have a problem with what he has a problem with. And that, so, like, this is just like yesterday when Hulk Hogan died and all these people were trying to rush in and act like he was like a better person than he was, rather than an intolerant, bigoted, xenophobic, racist asshole. Just because he died, he's no better of a person now that he's dead than he was alive. Just like Rush Limbaugh, they're chatting in hell right now, as far as I'm concerned. But that's my peeve. So, here's your chance. Get it off your chest. It doesn't have to be related to what I just said, but go ahead. We'll go, since I think we'll start with Ben this time.
That's a tough one. I'm really trying to think about it, because there's so many. I think their entire worldview is inverted. I would, if I had to choose an immediate one, and it's representative of how they play a really demonic game of narrative inversion, it would be that Governor Tim Walz is responsible for the assassination of Melissa and Mark Hortman, because one, the shooter tried to implicate him, but then also two, because the shooter was on a bipartisan panel that was already there, and Governor Walz simply renewed the panel. And it really just shows you that there's no level of depravity that these demonic, and I don't mean that in a spiritual sense, even though I do mean that in a spiritual sense, but when I say demonic, I mean in the mechanisms and the strategies and the implementation of it. It is intentional inversion. It's not being a devil's advocate to find the truth. It's being the devil's advocate to destroy the truth. And that's what they do all day, every day. And I think the most repugnant version of it most recently is the assassination, in the inversion of the narrative of who's responsible for the assassination of Melissa and Mark Hortman out of Minnesota.
I actually did a video on that. I'll send you the link. But
yeah,
like just the complete like neurotic disregard for reality with it all is just
like it's unnerving.
Best friend since 5th grade or something, or 2nd grader, like since childhood, who shared a home with him, said he hates Democrats.
Yes.
But somehow he's like this guy that is suddenly so pro-trans that he's going out and murdering people because, or no, pro-immigrant, even though he's got no history at all of being pro-immigrant. Like all of a sudden, this is the reason that he goes out and kills Democrats. Anyway, I break down the whole thing, all the talking points about that. I'll send you the link.
Yeah,
if you want to watch it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that because I went to school at University of Minnesota, lived there for 6 years, so that one kind of really struck a personal chord with me. So all right, who wants to go next, Kennedy or Ryan? Okay, let's go to Ryan.
Sure. Or Ryan, you want to do it? Or
I thought I saw Ryan raise his hand, but we'll go to Kennedy.
Yeah. So at first, I just want to say, I think it's so true that they act like this hate of Trump is so deranged, like you said, Machine Pun Kelly, and it's just not true. I mean, back when Trump was just a rich guy on TV, I didn't hate him. I didn't really like him, but he was just a guy. He wasn't like, but that was before all these sexual assault things had come out about him and stuff like that. I still feel that back when he ran, that should have been disqualifying back then, and it should be disqualifying now. And the idea that we just hate him arbitrarily, it's like, no, when he was running for president and then a bunch of women came out and said, this man is unsafe, here's the things he's done, I said, okay, well then this guy has to be written off as a dangerous individual. And it's still shocking to me that that's not what happened on a societal scale. So with that in mind, I really liked Ben's framing of the inversion of everything. I feel like that's so true, how everything is so inverted and strange. I think the thing that I'm finding most frustrating right now is the constant talking point that these are the the conservatives in power are the pro-children force in our country. I'm so sick of hearing that at the moment as somebody who works in a children's program that's being defunded by Donald Trump. We were supposed to be in 17 schools this year. We're going to be in 9. That is a tragedy. That is thousands of young lives affected. That is something that, Donald Trump, big, beautiful funding bill directly has affected. And these are the people that are constantly saying, oh, we love the children. We do everything for the children. It's so frustrating to have that. I don't even understand how that's still a talking point that we have to battle. And yet somehow we do. We still have to prove that we on the left care about children more than these folks. The left somehow has this reputation of being like the anti-child. Like everyone on the left's a child-hating cat lady, right? These goofy ass, which first of all, most cat ladies I know love children. Like these goofy talking points have no basis in reality. So that's the one that has been currently grinding my gears the most, is just, they're constantly out here saying that they're looking out for the children in all these different areas. They're protecting children, this and that. And, they just cut, SNAP education and SNAP funding that's going to take meals out of the mouths of millions of children across this country. I cannot believe that that this is still a talking point that we have to battle, but here we are. So that's my most frustrating one right now. MPK, you're muted.
Sorry. I agree with everything you just said. And I also I'm going to steal inversion politics from you, Ben, if that's okay. Because I think that's a perfect word for it. That's exactly what it is. So we're going to go to Ryan.
You really nailed it.
Ryan, I just want to mention before we go on that, I remember it is seared in my mind, sitting in my chair right here that I'm in right now, watching the March for Our Lives protest, and I was just moved to tears how a bunch of kids could shed that much light on a topic And I just want to thank you for what you did when you were a kid. And it's been amazing watching you guys grow up, and it looks like some of you have moved on to other things, but those that have stuck around and looked at trying to change the world, I just really respect how you took something so tragic and changed it into something positive for your life, gave you a direction for your life. So I just respect to you.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for engaging with my past work. It was I made it a mission of mine after the shooting, after everything that had happened in my community, to try my best to ensure others didn't have to experience such horrors. Of course, as we've seen in the years since 2018, many domestic shootings have occurred in a variety of spaces. Although my group has done a lot of great work, I've been thinking about this a lot recently with just the return of Trump and everything we've been experiencing over the past few months. And I mean, I shudder at the thought that every time I look at like the executive orders they pass, random additions they add to bills are erasing a lot of the good work that we were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about things like funding violence prevention centers, violence interrupters who go directly into communities, ensure that people aren't shot, ensure that if somebody is at risk of committing gun violence to themselves or others, that they are either talked down out of it, they are given the proper help they need, not necessarily in the carceral police sense, although there are some of these institutions that do engage with law enforcement because that is just the nature of our country. Although it is just what has truly bothered me hasn't been just what they've said. It truly has been the things that they've been doing, and not just the government itself, the Trump administration, but his following, like to even the people who aren't on the payroll, the people who aren't directly gaining from this. They're just cheerleaders essentially, who see the things like, oh yeah, he's saying move on from the Epstein stuff. Like, what? Come on, liberal. Come on, lefty. Like, what are you doing? Like, why do you even care about this? Like, these are the same people who freaked out about Pizzagate and all that. Talking about pedophile sex rings. It's like, look, if these things exist, I want these people taken down. I don't care if they're the Clintons. I don't care if they're the Trumps.
That's
I
right.
don't care. I don't care if it's Prince Andrew. I don't care who.
For the record, I just want to chime in and say I wouldn't care if it was Rashida Tlaib or somebody like that I currently find tolerable. If you show me proof,
Get them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever.
I literally just asked them, why are the Republicans protecting Bill Clinton?
Yes, that's a good one. I think that's the framing we should run with. Absolutely.
That's great.
But it's just from what I've just been thinking about with everything of these people. It's there's a book I read in college. I was gonna say she had left, but I went to American University. We'll talk more. Me and the professor, but it's Arlene Russell Hochschild, Strangers in Their Own Land. It's about the community in rural Louisiana that faces a lot of environmental disaster from industry, from lack of regulation in the area, and the population that this is all GOP policy that has caused this disaster, like rivers and lakes that people could have swam in as a kid, like are now deeply toxic sites. Like it's increasing the cancer rates in these areas. It's very, very horrible what has happened there. That's just a microcosm of what's happening all over the country. But my point is that these people, it's how do they make sense to follow the GOP despite the fact, like what they are experiencing with the pain that has been caused directly by the policy. And that is where it is just that vacuum of leadership where, I mean, we've been talking about like primarying, we've been talking about like who's running for office. It's that in their case, and in the case like states like Texas, or in the flipping to the liberal sense, a state like New York, or the majority of California, it's the difficulty of breaking out of whatever party has their machine politics that really rule the area, and it's just about we have to be filling in that vacuum of those people. I mean, I see this happening little by little all over the country. I personally believe that Zoran Mamdani here in New York is speaking to those sorts of, I mean, poor and working class issues. Whether or not he's able to achieve his goals, that is to be determined. But the fact is that you need these politicians, you need these leaders who are actually speaking to all of the issues that we are experiencing, whether it's the fact that our waterways are poisoned, the fact that our education's been defunded, the fact that we don't have a hospital in the area, things that are very real for a lot of Americans. And like whether they're on the left or right, these are things that people need. And like I'm saying, it's about filling in that vacuum that clearly exists because of the interests of capital, the interests of various industries that have taken over and hollowed out not just our federal government, but most government top to bottom, even in our various localities, where it just becomes impossible to fight some of these things.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you for, I grew up in Coconut Creek, Florida, right around the corner. And my high school, and I'm much older, as you can see, a grade. So I was nowhere there around the time, but we used to go to, we went to mathematics competitions at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I used to love going there. And so I felt this connection with you all's work, not only because of, geography, but just the work that you all have done, really making a significant impact, and to have that desire and that drive to make something out of trauma is really not just a survivor's tactic, but that's how we overcome. And I'm blessed to know that you all are a generation that have that embedded in your entire essence. So I feel like we're better for that effort that you all just refused. You refuse to let that evil act get the final say.
100%.
Thank you.
So, all right. So we need to wrap up. For logistical reasons, I always have to end the show before we hit 2 hours. Just want to give you guys each a chance. If you have a podcast or a website or a Substack or a social media account you want to blast, go ahead, and here's your chance. We'll start with Kennedy.
Thank you so much, MPK. It's been a real pleasure to be on. I hope I get the chance to come back. I've been a fan for a while. And thank you, everybody who chose to tune in today. If you want to follow and support me, I'm at KennedyTCooper.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Again, I work with an organization called Kids Cook that was recently defunded. We're doing a bunch of big pushes to try to save as much of the work of this organization as possible. So honestly, I'd love to shout that out and just say go to kidscook.us and check out the work that we do. It's one of the most incredibly efficient programs you've ever seen. You can read our annual report. We are not a money wasting venture. We are really out there providing support for families, kids, and communities. The last thing I'll say real quick is that I have a podcast called The Most Important Election of Our Lives. It's a little silly. It's a little we do a little political theory and teaching, but we sneak it in with some fun stuff, and it's just kind of a good time. So hope you'll check that out too.
I wanted to mention something to you earlier that I forgot to, but when I was a kid, my mom taught me to cook. Like all my favorite comfort foods, all the foods that, like I can make all my mom's recipes that I loved growing up. And that's really where, you mentioned you follow me on social media. So you see, like, I like cooking. I really love cooking. And I think the genesis of that was learning how to cook as a kid. It takes the fear out of it. And just, I feel like it involves all your senses. It involves, like touch, from just the feel of chopping onions, or visuals, the colors, the sound of things sizzling, the smell, the taste. Like I feel like it's one of the most encompassing experiences a person can have, and I love the idea that you're teaching kids how to cook.
I totally couldn't agree with you more, and thank you for saying all that, and I'd love to come back and talk about the value of that stuff in particular if you're interested.
Oh, that would be a great idea for a show. So, okay, Ben?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Benjamin P. Dixon. It's still Twitter to me. I've never called it X. Neither have I ever entered X. I've always typed in Twitter. You can find me on same Benjamin P. Dixon on Blue Sky. I'm over there on Substack as Pastor Ben, writing some stuff, and I'm getting ready to drop 2 chapters of an upcoming book on why Christians cannot be capitalists. Christians can't be capitalists, and we're going scripture by scripture by scripture. I'm not sure when the full book is going to come out, but we're dropping 2 chapters of it coming up this week.
I always say you cannot worship God and mammon both.
There it is.
That is the cornerstone of capitalism, is the antithesis of the Bible. You literally cannot do both.
That's it.
According to the Bible. So only if you believe in the Bible is that true. But anyway, so Ryan, got anything you want to pitch?
Yeah, I mean, just I have a personal website, ryandeitsch.com, RyanDeitsch. It's got my portfolio. I've made some short films, PSAs, done a lot of different talks, interviews, various things over the years. I have a Substack as well. Just type in my name, same thing. You'll be able to find it. Detox Digest is the current publication name that I work under. Really, really honored to have been here with all of you, to hear from all of you. Definitely brings me some hope. Just hearing from other people out there, we can be quite isolated in these dark times. So anytime we can come together, virtually or in person, it's really great.
So thanks everybody for coming on. We'll end here. I appreciate all of your input, all the range of thoughts. I think that this is what we need more on the left, is discussions from different groups of people and different paradigms. I think as long, like we all agree on 85% of stuff, and the other 15% shouldn't divide us. So, all right. Thanks again. I'm going to be ending now.